Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Radosveta Vassileva. I'm a legal scholar and social activist. Today I will be raising concern about human rights abuses in the European Union yet again. I will be talking about the lack of presumption of innocence in Bulgaria. So instead of applying a presumption of innocence, Bulgaria's authorities persistently apply a presumption of guilt. And certainly the presumption of innocence is not optional. It forms part of the modern criminal laws of democracies. It is part of the European Convention on Human Rights, which Bulgaria has ratified. It is part of the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, which is binding on all EU member states, and Bulgaria is a member of the European Union. And also, we should know that in 2016, actually, the European Union enacted a special directive to strengthen the presumption of innocence in the European Union. So, what does this principle mean in a nutshell? It means that everyone should be presumed innocent until proven guilty before a legitimate court and after a fair trial. It also means that the burden of proof is on the authorities making the accusation. So they should be proving that you're guilty rather than you proving that you're innocent. And last but not least, of course, this principle forbids authorities to make prejudicing statements, so to refer to your guilt publicly before you have a verdict by a court. Regrettably, Bulgaria does not respect the principle of the presumption of innocence. In fact, historically, 280 of the 588 cases it has lost before the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg concerned the lack of fair trial, including the disrespect for the presumption of innocence. So 48% of the cases, and this number is quite significant. Bulgaria has a historic problem with spectacular, disrespectful arrests. So even a few months ago, we had a 5-hour arrest in the center of Sofia. A person was kept in handcuffs so that all TV stations and media could actually broadcast, report, etc. Bulgaria also has a history of disrespecting the right to defense. So they would search your premises without the presence of a lawyer. They would destroy proof that they find. Authorities occasionally engage in violence against suspects and accused people, so that they would extract, for instance, confessions through physical abuse. Bulgaria also has a history of simulating trials, so prosecuting people for political reasons with the sole purpose of destroying their reputation and keeping them silent. They also have a history of making prejudicing statements against suspects or accused people. So they don't shy away from referring to you as guilty even though you don't have a verdict. And I wanted to give you an example with a statement the General Prosecutor of Bulgaria made last summer in 2017 in light of an accusation the prosecution had just raised. So he said, Bulgaria's prosecution applies Bulgarian law according to which the guilty ones become accused, and that is the purpose of criminal proceedings. And clearly there are many things that are wrong with this statement. First of all, this is not true. Even in Bulgarian law, we have a presumption of innocence. It forms part of Bulgaria's constitution. It is enshrined in the Code of Criminal Procedure, etc. But even if that weren't the case, as I mentioned earlier, Bulgaria is a signatory to the European Convention on Human Rights. It is a European Union member, so it's bound by the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, so it's not allowed to apply a presumption of guilt. And as I mentioned earlier, in 2016, the European Union enacted a special directive to strengthen the principle, and one of the key aspects of the directive is that authorities are forbidden from making prejudicing statements about suspects in public. And this is a statement the General Prosecutor made before the media, so clearly violating all of these important documents. Now, it's also important to note that Bulgaria is not just a champion or a leader, one of the leading countries in losing cases before the European Court of Human Rights. It is also a champion of not enforcing these decisions. And here I wanted to show you a graph by the Council of Europe. So this is a chart that shows the decisions put under enhanced supervision. So decisions that haven't been applied, decisions that have identified structural problems in a given jurisdiction. And you see that 6.7% of the cases are from Bulgaria. And the number is quite significant because the country is rather small. But also look at what countries Bulgaria is competing with in this somewhat embarrassing category. It's competing with Russia, the Ukraine, and Turkey, which are clearly not members of the European Union. So why is all of this happening? Well, first of all, Bulgaria's democracy has been severely deteriorating since Bulgaria entered the European Union in 2007. I guess you could use various terms to characterize the situation. Some would say that Bulgaria is a soft dictatorship. Others would say that it's an illiberal democracy. It's a term that became fashionable lately. But overall, democratic values are severely endangered. And here I wanted to show you a graph by Freedom House, which is quite shocking. You clearly see that instead of an evolution of democratic values, you have complete disintegration. And that's paradoxical because Bulgaria entered the European Union in 2007, and yet, as you see from the graph, the situation has been progressively getting worse and worse and worse. A second reason you could give is well, basically the fact that the country has some structural functional issues, and particularly problematic is the case of Bulgaria's Prosecutor's office. So this office has never been reformed, so it has a vertical structure, also called Stalinist structure, where all decisions depend on one person, and that's the general prosecutor. And in addition, he's not accountable before anyone, so he's completely independent under Bulgaria's constitution. So even though he may violate the constitution or he may engage in political prosecutions, etc., he doesn't bear any responsibility for his actions. And to make matters worse, the Council of Europe actually has called for a reform of this Stalinist structure for a very long time, for like more than 10-15 years, but Bulgaria hasn't carried out these reforms, which is quite sad. Now, last but not least, we should bear in mind, of course, that Bulgaria is a member state of the European Union, and European institutions have a responsibility to enforce European values when they're endangered, when a given member state fails at the task of protecting European values. But unfortunately, they have been closing their eyes to what is happening in Bulgaria. They pretend that nothing is wrong, and I guess they believe that if they pretend that nothing is happening, then people would just play along. And you know, to give you a simple example, here's a tweet by the European Commission from earlier this year, when Bulgaria assumed the presidency of the Council of the European Union. So you see a picture of Juncker, who's the president of the European Commission, and then you see that from migration, security, digital economy to the Western Balkans and the rule of law, Bulgaria has both the plan and the determination to move Europe forward. Well, I guess as a scholar, but also as a citizen, I have trouble reconciling this political message with the data I just showed you and the abuses that many people have suffered in Bulgaria. So thank you very much for watching. Once again, there is an article accompanying my video on my personal blog, Radosveta Vassileva.blog. I'll see you soon.